Hello everybody, Mr. Nicol here. Welcome to the next video in our National 5 and Higher PE YouTube series. This video today is going to be all about the social factor. Hopefully by now you will be fully aware that there are 4 overarching big factors that we talk about in PE, and these are physical, mental, emotional and social. So as you'll see today, we'll be exploring the social factor in a lot more depth. We'll be focusing on 3 different sub-factors, and by the end of this video today you should be able to understand how they impact on performance both positively and negatively, as well as how to collect data on them, develop them, approaches to developing them and monitoring them. The 3 factors we will focus on today are roles and responsibilities, etiquette and communication. At the end of this video there will be a task with 3 questions in it. On the slide after the task I've given you example answers. However, if you watch through this video you should be more than prepared to answer these questions, given the fact that we've already looked at the describe and explain command words. So firstly then, looking at roles and responsibilities. The individual role you adopt in a group or team activity will be dependent on many factors. These may include physical attributes and your ability as a skilled performer, including your decision-making qualities. So if you look at the picture on the right hand side, you can see 2 basketball players, and one of the first things you notice about them is that one player is significantly taller than the other. Obviously the game of basketball, height is something which is often an advantage. However, within the team there are particular roles and responsibilities such as rebounding, where height is a positive thing that can impact positively on your performance. So your coach or your manager might direct you towards a path which would be most advantageous to you given your kind of inert or original qualities that you would have as a player. So the positive aspects of the roles and responsibilities, a good basketball centre will be fully aware of his offensive and defensive rebounding responsibilities, his or her that should say. A badminton player will know to cover the back of the court if her partner steps in to play a net kill. So thinking about the way that the 2 players in a badminton doubles game interact with each other, they cover the space by either covering the front or the back or the side for one person and the other side for another. A defensive midfielder will protect his centre halves and will demonstrate positional discipline throughout. A strong captain, the final one there, will lead by example. They will provide encouragement and positivity. They're often someone that's quite vocal on the pitch, not afraid to kind of get their point across, doing whatever they can to work for the benefit of their team. Looking at the negative aspects of roles and responsibilities, some people don't react well to responsibility for a number of reasons. It may be that they do not have the discipline to perform a particular task. An individual may not have the skill set or confidence to play as a point guard in basketball during the fast break. This means they don't have the drive centrally, they make poor decisions at the key, so you need someone for that position that is a good ball handler, is able to control the ball in the direction that they want it to go, as well as having the awareness to make good decisions on who they're going to pass the ball to. Becoming the captain, it may be too much pressure for some people, so they may become distractive, which can have negative impacts on their performance. So you need someone for that role that's normally of good kind of social standing. They're able to communicate well with players, with coaches, with their manager, both on and off the pitch. Looking then at our next kind of sub-factor of social that we're going to look at today, it is etiquette. Now, etiquette is often described as the unwritten rules in sport. So it's things that you kind of do, but they're not things that you have to do because they're not given in the rules. So things like this might be, for example, shaking hands at the start and the end of a game. It might be putting the ball out of play if an opponent player has become injured. Bad etiquette there, it says, can have a detrimental effect on performance and relationships. A couple of good examples of that coming up, both from tennis. We're going to look at the positive and negative ways in which etiquette can manifest itself. So etiquette can vary from simple things like shaking opponents' hands, as I said, to extraordinary acts of sportsmanship. Good etiquette positively impacts performance because it promotes an atmosphere of fair play and respect, which is important to both the current game that you're playing as well as games to be played in the future. And if you look at this example here from tennis, it's clearly an example of an extraordinary act of sportsmanship. There can also be a negative aspect to etiquette. Poor etiquette can lead to distraction, loss of concentration. It can result in warnings, sending offs, fines or bans. Games like tennis and badminton are renowned for etiquette. Crowds and officials react very negatively to poor behaviour. So quite often something will happen in a game, and as you'll see in this video here, the game is stopped and the person who committed a bad example of etiquette loses the game, and the other person automatically wins it by default. So let's watch this video here. Watching the player in the red here. You can see he's hit the ball and it's come into contact directly with the umpire's face. So you can see there from the player in the red's reaction that he probably didn't mean to hit the umpire in the face with the ball. However, it did happen as a result of a kind of fit of rage, and as a result he's lost the game. The game's been handed to the opponent. So etiquette massively positively and negatively, if not kind of conducted in the right way, has massive impacts on performance. The third and final aspect, or sub-factor for the social factor that we're going to be looking at today, is communication. So there are two types of communication, both verbal and non-verbal. You should be kind of hearing about this from first year right the way through to where you are now, so this shouldn't be new information, but it's good just to have it written down. So verbal communication includes calling for the ball, giving feedback, giving tactical advice. So a lot of the stuff that a manager or a captain or coach might be giving you is verbal communication. If you're passing the ball between a player in your own team, it's often encouraged that you use that person's name. Non-verbal communication there, so it includes hand signals, body language, facial expressions, and we can kind of see all of that from the picture on the right. Clearly that the footballer is not happy with whatever decision the referee has made, and you can see that in his hand signal pointing at his face there. His body language is clearly not happy, and his facial expressions showing the same. Communication can impact on performance both positively and negatively. So positives there, communication is vital to share meaningful information with your teammates. Communication all allows you to finalise roles, discuss tactics, or refine technique. Communication also allows you to encourage team members and contribute towards a positive team spirit. So you can see that on the right hand side there, there's probably been a bit of verbal communication between the coach, or the manager, sorry, and the player. And they've also got a wee bit of non-verbal in their high five there as well. Negative aspects, so communication can be used poorly. It can discourage teammates, it can incite a sense of fear in a team of making mistakes as a result of maybe being ridiculed or that being pulled up harshly. Lack of communication, by not telling a teammate, so this is by absence of communicating. So if I don't communicate with someone, it can cause a variety of things. So one example, if an opponent is closing down a teammate of mine and a teammate can't see them because they're not looking in the right direction, and I don't tell them, even though I've got the ability to do it, it could result in the person on my team losing possession. So a number of ways in which communication can impact on performance positively and negatively. We're going to move a wee bit away now from looking at how social factors impact on our performance positively and negatively, and we're going to start looking at how we can collect data on this. Now, I don't want you to worry about this too much right now at this stage of the course, because we're just giving you a wee overview of the social factor, but it's just so that the information is there. You will have a turn in class at actually carrying out these methods of collecting data, but I'll just go over these quickly just now, so we'll not spend too much time on them. First collecting tool, I've got two. The first collecting tool is a social questionnaire, so we'll probably do that throughout the year. At some point, it looks at the reasons for sporting participation there, roles and responsibilities, inclusion and cooperation, etiquette and motivation. So it tends to ask you a question and give you a range of answers in which you can tick for the right one, and there's ways of collecting that data. But again, we'll not go into that too much right now. We'll look at that as the year goes on. And the second collection tool I've got there is video and then retrospective team analysis. So a classmate teacher will video your team's performance. This video will then identify moments of good or bad etiquette, motivation levels, and whether your role was carried out effectively, whether good cooperation was evident, and whether every player was included. So it will tend to focus on whichever aspect of your performance. So they're all the social factors there. So it'll focus maybe on one of those. So for example, let's take the etiquette one there, and we'll look specifically at, well, how did your etiquette manifest itself throughout the performance? Was it good? Was it bad? And where was that specifically? A couple of examples there. Were there any moments of exclusion in the performance? How did this affect you? These are questions you might ask. Were there any moments of bad etiquette in the performance? How did this affect you? We're moving on now to look at how the approaches we can use to develop the social factor. So a number of approaches we could use. One is team building. So I'm almost certain that at some point in your life you will have done a team building exercise. They tend to be fun, inclusive approaches that make everyone feel wanted and respected. So it might be that you do in school, you'll tend to do a team building activity. So you might have heard of the hands in a knot exercise. If you've not, you'll likely do it this year. It's when you stand in a circle, you all put in your right hand and you grab somebody else's hand, and then you put in your left hand and do the same thing. You've got to try and untangle yourself. It's a game there which you've got to use communication, work together on a shared common goal to overcome a task, and that is a way of developing your kind of ability to work as a team. It might be also that you do an alternative activity. So I remember watching, I think it was the Manchester Football Club team on Netflix, and they were out doing paintball as a way of team building, so a different activity rather than the football which they're used to, which is just another team building exercise, a chance for the team to kind of relax and enjoy a bit of time together without actually performing in the actual sport they're doing. It's a different one. So you could do it in swimming, rock climbing, paintballing, as I've said, or an assault course. However, team building doesn't always go well, and that's part of the picture. So you'll see in this video at the bottom, you could justify this as a team building exercise where all of the individuals on the seesaw are trying to get onto it. It clearly requires a lot of teamwork, but it doesn't quite work out how they have it planned. So you can see there, their shared goal of getting everyone on the seesaw hasn't quite worked out, and they've ended up in a heap on the floor. Second approach then, team talks. So team talks are vital to ensuring that your team is well organised before going into a game. It's a great opportunity for coaches, managers, captains to communicate, information about the direction of play, strategies and tactics. And this will go a long way towards ensuring the team works as a cohesive unit. You can see on the right hand side there, Scotland, it looks like the rugby team having their team talk. Third approach we could use for social factors and developing them is looking at role models. So I've got a couple of role models there. Cristiano Ronaldo on the left hand side, and then we have Serena Williams on the right hand side. So we might think about them and what makes them really good, how do they inspire us, are there things we can do to be more like them. This slide has more information about a model performer and how this can be used, so reasons we might use it: to motivate and inspire mentally, to set realistic and achievable targets or goals, to highlight outstanding mental attributes, to promote performance, consistency and mental toughness, to highlight correct mindset before, during and after a performance. Who can be a model performer or a role model? Well, it could be the world's best person at a sport. Could be a school, regional or national champion. Could be a teammate or a classmate. It could be a teacher or a coach. I know for me that as a teacher, I really aspire to be like Mr. Cuthbert. So he for me is my role model. Explain the impact of one model performer in relation to the social factor. So it might be an idea to pause the video here and think about, for you, my role model is Mr. Cuthbert, as I've said, so maybe you could think about who your role model is. Moving on now to look at monitoring. So again, we're not going into too much detail, but it's good to just have these words and kind of ideas about what monitoring is and the methods we can use for it. So firstly, why is it that we monitor or evaluate our performance? So it highlights whether or not you have improved. So how do you know you have improved? You'll use a number of monitoring tools. It allows you to set new targets once old ones have been reached, and this increases motivation levels. Diary entries encourage performers to be reflective and evaluative, picking out the positives from a defeat and the negatives from a victory. A coach can provide a bite-sized feedback so performers can work on small adjustments at a time. So these are a number of ways in which we can get information which can monitor our performance. This is the main thing I want to say though in the monitor section of this PowerPoint. So a training diary, as you can see on the right, is a record which is kept of all of your training sessions, and it records both what you do in your training session as well as your thoughts and your feelings. It is a universal method of monitoring. So what this means is that if you are ever asked a question in PE about how do you monitor your performance or how do you monitor this factor, you can always say a training diary. It works for them all. So it's an easy way to pick up multiple marks because you don't need to know multiple ways of monitoring as such. Although, well, that's actually a lie, you do need to know more, but this is one that you can use for them all, but it's handy to know another couple as well. Task for you then this week. So 3 questions there. The first question is you've got to choose a role or responsibility either you have in your team, or if you're not in a team or you don't play a sport yourself, then that someone else has in a team, and you've got to describe what your role and responsibility is. Remember, we did a PowerPoint on describe, and what that question is asking you to do, it is not to explain anything, you've just got to paint a picture about what that role is. So what do they do? Second question, this is an explain question, so you can see that in the third line down. Choose a sub-factor from either the roles, responsibilities, communication or etiquette, so there are the 3 we've looked at today, and explain how it can impact positively on performance. So choose one of those 3, it's either roles, responsibilities, communication or etiquette, and explain how that impacts positively. And then the last question there, choose a different sub-factor from either roles, responsibilities, communication or etiquette, and explain how it can impact, but this time, negatively on performance. So that's your 3 questions for this week. There are example answers just here. So I'll not read them to you, you can read them in your own time, but please do make sure that you return that work to your teacher, because it really will help you to access the best marks and the best result that you can for your National 5 or your higher PE course. Thank you very much for listening.